He said, "Stop being so needy. I'll text you when I feel like it." I remember the moment too clearly because my thumb froze midair above the screen. Not trembling, not rushing, just suspended. "No problem," I typed back. 2 words. Calm, polite, almost indifferent. Then I did something that didn't feel dramatic at the time, just quiet, intentional. I muted his chat, turned off read receipts, put my phone on Do Not Disturb, allowing calls only from family and a couple of close friends. And then I went on with my life. I didn't announce it, didn't threaten anything, didn't give a speech about boundaries or respect. I simply listened. Because for 7 months, I had been listening to everything except what he was actually telling me. He said I was needy. He said I was suffocating. He said my desire for basic communication exhausted him. So I stopped. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't find out until much later, was that his "I'll text you when I feel like it" turned into a flood almost immediately. Messages, calls, missed calls, escalating panic. But on my end, silence. Weeks later, he showed up at my door, not knocking, pounding. I looked through the peephole and barely recognized him. Hair messy, jaw clenched, eyes wild in a way that made my chest tighten. "I know you're in there," he shouted. "Why aren't you answering me?" And in that moment, something clicked with terrifying clarity. He never wanted space. He wanted control. He wanted the power to decide when I was allowed to matter, while staying certain I'd still be waiting when he came back. And when I wasn't, that's when everything began to unravel. This isn't a story about playing games. It's not about revenge. And it's definitely not about giving someone the silent treatment. It's about what happens when you stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's comfort zone. All I did was give him exactly what he asked for. And it broke him. I was 32 when I met him. Not desperate, not lonely in the dramatic sense people like to project onto single women in their 30s. I had a full life, work that kept me busy, friends I saw too rarely, a family that checked in just enough to be annoying, but comforting. I wasn't looking for someone to complete me. I was looking for someone who fit. We met at a friend's barbecue the previous spring. He was a friend of a friend, someone's coworker's cousin or something like that. The kind of introduction that feels casual, unremarkable, no pressure. He stood near the grill, laughing too loudly at someone else's joke. When our eyes met, he smiled first. Easy, confident, warm. We started talking about nothing, then everything. He was smart, funny without trying too hard. He worked as a marketing director at a startup, ambitious, articulate, always half complaining about deadlines while secretly loving the chaos. I liked that about him. The way he leaned forward when he talked, like the world was something he intended to engage with, not just survive. The first few months were good, really good. We texted constantly, nothing obsessive, just easy check-ins, good mornings, random thoughts. This reminded me of you. We made plans and actually kept them. Dinners turned into late-night conversations. Weekends felt full instead of rushed. There was chemistry, but more than that, there was rhythm. I rearranged my work schedule to make it to his events, helped him move apartments one humid Saturday, sweat dripping down my spine while he joked about owing me dinner forever. I met his parents, polite, curious, watching me the way parents watch women they're not sure will last. He met mine too. It felt like progression, like momentum. Around month 5, things started to shift. Subtly at first, the kind of change you question yourself for noticing. Texts took longer to come back. Plans got canceled the night before, sometimes the morning of. When we did spend time together, he seemed distracted. His phone was always in his hand, face lighting up at messages he wouldn't explain. When I asked, gently, he brushed it off. "Work's just crazy lately. I'm tired." You're reading into it. I told myself not to be that woman, the insecure one, the one who invents problems where there aren't any. So I adjusted. I texted less, waited more, swallowed the tight feeling in my chest when a whole day passed without hearing from him. Told myself this was what mature relationships look like. Space, independence, trust. But something didn't sit right. Because every time I tried to talk about it, really talk, he turned it back on me. Why was I keeping score? Why did I need so much reassurance? Why couldn't I just relax? By the time we hit 7 months, I had internalized a version of myself I barely recognized. The woman who reread messages before sending them. The woman who waited hours to respond just to avoid seeming too much. I thought I was being understanding. I didn't realize I was already disappearing. The first real warning sign wasn't something dramatic. There was no screaming, no betrayal exposed, no moment where the floor dropped out from under me. It was smaller than that. It was the growing awareness that I was always waiting. Waiting for a reply, waiting for confirmation, waiting to see if plans were real or just placeholders he'd cancel when something better came along. At first, I told myself it was normal. People get busy, relationships ebb and flow. Not everything needs to be dissected. But the pattern became impossible to ignore. He'd say, "Let's do dinner Friday," and I'd rearrange my schedule, turn down other invitations, leave the evening open. Then Thursday night, sometimes Friday afternoon, his text would come. Something came up. "Can we rain check?" Just not feeling it tonight. Always vague, always last minute. And when we did see each other, something felt off. He was there, but not present. His eyes flicked to his phone mid-conversation. His laugh came half a second too late. When I reached for his hand, he squeezed back, but it felt automatic, like muscle memory, not intention. One night, sitting across from him at his kitchen counter, I finally said it. "Hey, can I ask you something?" He didn't look up from his phone. "Yeah. Have I done something wrong?" That got his attention. He sighed, long and heavy, like I'd just asked him to solve a problem he didn't feel like dealing with. "No, why would you think that?" "I don't know," I said carefully. "You just seem distant lately. I feel like I'm always the one reaching out." There it was, the first crack. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms. "You're overthinking." "I'm not trying to start a fight," I said. "I just want to understand where we're at." "That's the problem," he replied. "You always need to talk about things." I felt my shoulders tense. "Is that a bad thing?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "It's exhausting." The word landed harder than I expected. I tried to explain, not accuse, not demand. Just explain. "I don't need constant reassurance," I said. "I just want to feel like I matter to you." He shook his head, already frustrated. "See, this right here, you're being needy." I stared at him. "Needy?" "You're always checking in," he continued. "Always wanting to know what I'm doing, where I am, when we'll talk next. It feels suffocating." My chest tightened. "I text you good morning," I said quietly, "and ask about plans we already made." "It's not about the number of texts," he snapped. "It's the energy. You need too much validation." I went quiet after that. Not because I agreed, but because I didn't know how to argue without proving his point. After that night, I changed. I stopped initiating conversations, stopped asking follow-up questions, stopped expressing disappointment when plans fell through. I smiled more, asked less, and every time he pulled away, I told myself it was because I hadn't given him enough space yet. What I didn't realize was that the more I shrank, the more power he took, and he was already preparing to use it. The conversation that ended everything happened 3 weeks before he showed up at my door. We were supposed to grab dinner on a Friday night. Nothing fancy, just a place we'd been meaning to try. I'd been looking forward to it all week, not because of the restaurant, but because it felt like a small promise, proof that we still existed. Thursday evening, his text came through. "Hey, I'm gonna have to cancel tomorrow." No explanation, no alternative plan. It was the third time that month. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, then decided not to pretend this was fine anymore. I called him. He answered on the third ring, already sighing. "Hey," I said. "I just wanted to check in. You've seemed kind of distant lately. Is everything okay?" There was a heavy exhale on the other end of the line. "There you go again," he said. "Again how?" "This," he replied sharply. "This need to talk about everything." "I'm not trying to start a fight," I said. "You're suffocating me," he cut in. Constantly texting, always wanting to know where I am, needing reassurance every 5 seconds. It's exhausting. My stomach dropped. "I sent you 2 texts today," I said quietly. "Good morning," and asking about dinner. "It's not about the number," he snapped. "It's the energy. You're so needy, like a puppy that needs constant attention." That word puppy hit harder than the rest. I felt heat rush to my face. My grip tightened around my phone. "So, what do you want?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "I want to text when I feel like it," he said. "Call when I want to talk. Not because you need your daily dose of reassurance. Stop being so desperate." There was a long pause. "All right," I said. "What?" he asked, surprised. I said, "All right, no problem." Another beat of silence. "Good," he said finally. "I'll text you when I feel like it." Then he hung up. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, phone still in my hand, staring at nothing. 7 months. I had rearranged my work schedule for his events, helped him move apartments, met his parents, built space for him in my life. And now I was needy for wanting basic communication. Fine. If he wanted to text when he felt like it, I would respect that completely. I opened our chat and muted it, turned off read receipts, just for him, then put my entire phone on Do Not Disturb, allowing calls only from family and close friends. If he wanted space, I would give him all of it. The first week was harder than I expected. I kept catching myself reaching for my phone, instinctively checking his chat. More than once, I had to physically put my phone in another room just to stop myself. But I didn't break. Life kept moving. I caught up with friends I'd been neglecting. Finished a project at home I'd been putting off. Even went on a weekend trip with my brother, something I'd postponed more than once because he always had maybe plans that never materialized. The second week, a mutual friend asked about him. "Haven't seen him around lately," he said. "Everything okay?" "We're giving each other some space," I replied. It wasn't code for anything. It was exactly what he asked for. What I didn't know then, but would learn later, was that his "I'll text when I feel like it" started almost immediately. Day 1. "Hey, thinking about you." Day 2. "Want to grab coffee this week?" Day 3. "Hello?" Day 4. "Are you seriously ignoring me?" Day 5. "This is really immature." But with notifications muted and read receipts off, he had no idea if I was seeing any of it. As far as he knew, I might have been reading every message and choosing not to respond. Or maybe I hadn't touched my phone in days. That uncertainty must have been eating at him. By the end of week 2, he changed tactics. He called my work line, messaged me on social media I barely checked, reached out through mutual friends. And when that still didn't work, that's when he decided to show up. When the pounding started, it didn't sound like knocking. It sounded like someone trying to force their way into a decision I'd already made. I was in the kitchen, halfway through chopping vegetables, when the first udar hit the door. Sharp, angry, followed by another and another. My chest tightened. I didn't move right away. I wiped my hands on a towel, heart thudding, and walked slowly toward the door. The hallway felt longer than usual, quieter, like it was holding its breath with me. I leaned in and looked through the peephole. It was him, hair a mess, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. His eyes were wide, frantic, nothing like the confident man who once leaned against a grill and smiled at me like the world was simple. "I know you're in there," he shouted. "Your car is outside." I opened the door, but kept the chain on. "Hey," I said calmly. His face twisted. "Hey, that's all you have to say?" "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded. "I've been texting you for weeks. Calling. I even went to your work." I nodded once. "Okay." "Okay?" His voice rose. "That's it? I sent you hundreds of messages." "You said you'd text when you felt like it," I replied evenly. "I assumed you hadn't felt like it." His face went red, then purple. "Show me your phone," he snapped. "No." "Why not?" "Because you told me I was needy and suffocating," I said. "I'm giving you space. Isn't that what you wanted?" "I didn't mean it like that," he stammered. "You know what I meant." "I know exactly what you said," I replied. "Stop being needy. Don't text unless you text first. Give you space." "That's manipulation," he accused. I felt something settle inside me, solid, unmovable. "No," I said. "This is literally what you asked for." He tried to push past the chain. "We need to talk about this." "Do we?" I asked quietly. "You made it pretty clear that my need for basic communication exhausted you. I'm just trying not to exhaust you anymore." "You're twisting my words." "I'm repeating them." For a moment, he froze. Then his demeanor shifted. His shoulders slumped. His voice softened. Tears welled in his eyes. Not falling, just sitting there, threatening. "I was stressed," he said. "Work's been insane. I didn't mean it. I miss you. Can we just talk?" I studied him. "Nate," I said, my voice steady, "you called me needy, desperate, suffocating. Those are very specific words." "I was having a bad week," he said. "You were having a bad 3 months," I replied. That stopped him. I continued slowly. "You wanted to control all the communication. Decide when we talked, when we texted, when we saw each other. That's not a relationship. That's keeping someone on a shelf until you're bored." "That's not true," he insisted. "Your last text before you told me off was canceling our 3rd date that month," I said. "But sure, I'm the problem for wanting to actually see my boyfriend." He tried another angle. "My mom's been asking about you," he said quickly. "She really likes you." "That's nice," I replied. "Tell her I said hi." Silence stretched. "My birthday's next week," he added. "You know that?" "I do." "Were you even going to acknowledge it?" "Were you going to invite me?" I asked softly. "Or would that be too needy of me to assume?" His jaw tightened. The tears vanished, replaced by anger. "You're being cruel," he snapped. "I'm being exactly what you asked for," I said. Distant, unbothered, not needy. "I didn't want this." "Then what did you want?" I asked. He hesitated. "Silence," I said quietly. "You wanted me to chase you, beg for your attention, Prove how much I cared while you decided if I was worth your time. That's not me, he protested. Go home, I said. We're not done talking. We are, I replied. You ended this 3 weeks ago when you told me to stop being needy. I never said pathetic, he shot back. Desperate, needy, suffocating, I said. Same difference. I started closing the door. He shoved his foot into the gap. If you close that door, we're done. We've been done, I said, nudging his foot back with mine and locking the door. I just finally listened. He pounded on it for 5 more minutes, shouting that I'd regret this, that I was throwing away something special, that no one would ever care about me like he did. That last one made me laugh. If this was his version of caring, I'd take being alone. The escalation was fast, violent in its entitlement, and somehow completely predictable. The next morning, I finally checked my phone properly. 134 unread messages. I sat on the edge of my bed, scrolling, not with shock, but with a strange, detached curiosity, like I was watching footage of a storm I'd already survived. The progression was almost clinical. Days 1 to 3, casual. Hey, thinking about you. Want to grab coffee this week? As if nothing had happened. Days 4 to 7, irritation creeping in. Hello? Are you seriously ignoring me? This is immature. Days 8 to 14, anger colliding with worry. What's wrong with you? I'm actually concerned. Answer me. Days 15 to 20, full panic mode, long paragraphs, apologies, promises. I didn't mean it. I miss you. Please just talk to me. And then, inevitably, day 21, threats. This is really immature of you. I'm willing to forgive you if you apologize now. You're proving my point about being needy. My therapist says this is emotional abuse. He didn't have a therapist. If you don't respond by tonight, I'm coming over. I'll call the police and say you're missing. Your stupid ego is ruining everything. I hope you're happy knowing you traumatized me. I stopped scrolling. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I felt clear. The next message came the morning after he'd shown up at my door. You've shown your true colors. A real woman would fight for the relationship instead of playing childish games. I'm blocking you. Don't contact me again. I laughed out loud. He was blocking me. 20 minutes later, a text came from an unknown number. This is him. I blocked you, but I have more to say. I blocked the number. An hour later, an email landed in my inbox. Subject: we need to have an adult conversation. I marked it as spam. Then his mother called. I hesitated before answering. I'd always liked her. Warm, gentle, the kind of woman who spoke softly but noticed everything. Hi, sweetheart, she said. I'm worried about him. He says you two had a fight. We didn't have a fight, I replied calmly. He told me I was too needy and asked for space. I gave it to him. A pause. He's been crying, she said quietly. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, and I meant it. But wanting to see your partner more than once a month isn't suffocating. That's just being in a relationship. Another pause, longer this time. He said that, she asked. Yes, I said, among other things. She exhaled. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. He's always been like this. His father and I probably spoiled him too much. Her voice softened. You're not wrong for wanting basic care. Thank you, I said. Don't let him convince you otherwise, she added. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Then he showed up at my workplace. My manager called me from the floor. Your boyfriend is here. Ex, I corrected. Don't let him in. He's making a scene. If it escalates, call security, I said, or the police. She didn't hesitate. He left before anyone arrived, but not before loudly telling everyone within earshot that I was mentally unstable and going through something. My office manager, 62 years old, zero tolerance, later told me exactly what she said to him. Honey, she'd smiled, the only unstable person here is the one showing up at a woman's workplace after she dumped him. Then came the social media campaign. A long post about emotionally abusive women, about manipulation, about how he'd dodged a bullet. At first, his friends rallied behind him. Then the questions started appearing in the comments. Wait, didn't you say she was too clingy? I thought you wanted space. Didn't you tell her not to text you? The post disappeared within hours, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was when he tried to recruit our mutual friends. He showed up at a couple's house we both knew, crying, claiming I was emotionally terrorizing him. Later, the wife told me what she asked him. Did you or did you not tell her to stop being needy and only text when you felt like it? He couldn't answer, just kept repeating, that's not the point. But it was the point. It had always been the point. And when control slipped through his fingers, he panicked. The legal threat arrived on a Wednesday. Not in person, not through anyone official. An envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Inside was a letter. printed, formal-looking, intimidating at first glance. Legal language, accusations, words like emotional distress, deliberate psychological harm, sustained neglect, and abandonment. I sat on the floor of my living room, back against the couch, reading it twice, then a third time. My pulse finally started to race. It wasn't because I believed it. It was because I recognized the escalation. This wasn't about pain anymore. This was about punishment. I called my cousin, she works as a paralegal, and read it to her verbatim. She laughed. Not a chuckle, not a polite exhale. She laughed for a full 5 minutes. "This isn't even on official letterhead," she finally said. "It's a template, probably something he found online." "So, I shouldn't worry?" "About the letter? No," she replied. "About him being completely unhinged? Yes." That word lingered after we hung up. Unhinged. That night I didn't sleep. Every sound outside my apartment made my muscles tense. Every headlight that passed my window felt like a threat. I replayed every interaction, every text, every moment where I'd questioned myself instead of him. I wasn't scared of him hurting me physically. I was scared of how far he was willing to go to avoid accountability. The next morning, I made a decision. I stopped waiting for things to get worse. I went to the courthouse. I brought screenshots, voicemails, witness statements, documentation of him showing up at my home, my workplace, the messages, the threats, the fake legal letter. The judge didn't hesitate. A temporary no-contact order was granted immediately. He was served the next day. The voicemail he left, violating it, came from a friend's phone. "You got a restraining order?" His voice sneered. "Are you serious? I'm the victim here. You psychologically abused me. You're going to regret this. My father knows people. You're done. You're so done." I forwarded it to my lawyer. Violation number 1. Still, the fear didn't disappear. I second-guessed myself constantly. Was I too harsh? Should I have explained more? Could I have de-escalated this sooner? Late one night, sitting alone in the quiet, I finally admitted the truth I'd been avoiding. I wasn't grieving the relationship. I was grieving the version of myself that kept trying to earn basic respect. The version that believed if I just said things more gently, loved more patiently, asked less, he would suddenly become safe. That realization hit harder than any insult he'd thrown at me, because it meant this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern, and I had stepped out of it. The next knock on my door came a few days later. I didn't open it. A mutual friend stood outside, holding a letter. "I'm really sorry," she said through the door. "I told him this was a bad idea." "I can't accept that," I replied. "There's a restraining order." "I know," she said softly. "I told him." Then he didn't listen. Silence. "For what it's worth," she added, "we all knew he was treating you badly. The cancellations, the hot and cold thing. You didn't imagine it." I slid down the door after she left, knees to my chest, and let myself cry. Not for him, but for how long I'd doubted my own reality. That was my darkest moment. Not fear, not heartbreak, but the quiet understanding that someone I loved had never actually seen me as a partner, only as someone to control. The call came from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. By then, unknown numbers felt like landmines, each one carrying the potential to pull me back into chaos I was actively stepping away from. But something in my chest tightened, a quiet instinct telling me this was different. I picked up. "Is this my name?" a man asked. "Yes," I replied carefully. "This is Tom," he said. "I'm calling about him." "Of course you are." "And why," I asked evenly, "are you calling me?" There was a pause, a recalibration. "He's really torn up about what happened between you two," Tom continued. "And honestly, I think you owe him an explanation." I almost laughed, but instead I breathed in slowly. "I'm sorry," I said. "Who are you again?" "I'm someone who cares about him." "How long have you cared about him?" I asked. Silence. I waited. Then it clicked. Let me guess, I thought, but I said it out loud. "You've been friends for a while," I said calmly. Always there when he complained about his needy girlfriend. Told him he deserved better. Maybe grabbed coffee a few times while I was supposedly suffocating him. "That's not what this is," Tom protested. "Sure it isn't," I replied. "Tell you what, he's all yours." Another pause. "Enjoy the experience," and I added. "And when he starts calling you needy in about 6 months, remember, you volunteered for this." I hung up. And for the first time in weeks, my hands weren't shaking. That was the moment the fog finally lifted. Because it wasn't just about me anymore. It never had been. He didn't want space. He wanted options. He didn't want boundaries. He wanted leverage. And the moment I stopped playing my role, someone else had already been warming up on the sidelines. The restraining order hearing followed shortly after. He didn't show. Sent a statement instead. Pages of blame. Accusations. Claims that I was manipulative, cold, emotionally abusive, that I had abandoned him without warning. I listened quietly as the judge reviewed the evidence. Screenshots, voicemails, witness accounts, the documented violations. The order was made permanent. Just like that. Walking out of the courthouse, the air felt different, lighter, sharper, like I was finally breathing with my whole chest again. He tried once more. A voicemail from another friend's phone, angrier this time, desperate beneath the rage. "You think you won?" he spat. "Everyone knows what you did. You didn't fight for us. You just walked away." I saved it. Another violation. But something had shifted. His voice didn't scare me anymore. It sounded small. Weeks passed. I heard through mutual friends that Tom lasted about 3 weeks before the same cycle started. Hot, cold, distance, accusations, panic. 2 more men followed. Same pattern, same ending. He lost friends. People tired of being dragged into drama, tired of defending behavior that no longer made sense. As for me, I stopped explaining myself, stopped defending my reality, stopped carrying shame that wasn't mine to hold. The turning point wasn't the restraining order. It wasn't the backup man calling. It wasn't even the final accusation. It was the moment I understood, with absolute clarity, that I hadn't lost anything worth keeping. I had escaped something that would have kept shrinking me until there was nothing left. And I chose not to go back. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments. Stories passed through mutual friends, half-heard updates, secondhand truths that confirmed what I already knew but no longer needed to prove. The restraining order became permanent 3 months after everything started. Not because I pushed for it aggressively, not because I dramatized anything, because he violated it. 3 times in the first month alone. A voicemail from a friend's phone, a message relayed through someone else, an attempt to check in under the guise of concern. Each time I documented it, each time it was reported. By the 3rd violation, even the patience of the system wore thin. From what I heard, the judge wasn't amused. Through the grapevine, I learned that Tom, the man who'd called me, confident and righteous, lasted exactly 3 weeks. 3. Apparently, the same complaints surfaced almost immediately. Tom was too intense. Tom wanted too much reassurance. Tom didn't give enough space. When Tom finally walked away, he didn't do it quietly. He vented, asked questions, compared notes. And suddenly, a few people started connecting dots they'd ignored before. After Tom came 2 more men. Shorter relationships, faster implosions, less patience from everyone involved. Friends stopped taking his calls, stopped offering couches, advice, emotional labor. They'd heard this story too many times now. He still posted online, of course. Vague paragraphs about toxic exes, about surviving emotional abuse, about how some women can't handle strong men with boundaries. The irony didn't escape anyone anymore. A few comments challenged him. Most were ignored. Some posts were deleted within hours. The narrative was collapsing under its own weight. I ran into Melissa, one of our mutual friends, at a hardware store one afternoon. "Heard you're doing well," she said, smiling. "I can't complain," I replied honestly. She hesitated, then added, "He still tells people you emotionally abused him." I nodded. "He's entitled to his version of events." She exhaled. "Derek ran into him at a bar last weekend. And he was drunk, crying, telling some new guy you were the one that got away." I laughed, not bitterly, not triumphantly, just amused. "I didn't get away," I said. "He pushed me out." "That's exactly what Derek told him," she replied. "Didn't go over well." Apparently a drink was thrown. Some things never change. As for me, my life had quietly expanded into the space he'd vacated. I started my own contracting business, something I'd wanted to do for years, but he'd always called too risky, impractical, selfish. Turns out, betting on myself felt safer than shrinking for someone else. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected, filled my weekends with plans that actually happened, laughed without checking my phone, slept without bracing for interruptions. About a month later, I started seeing someone new. Nothing dramatic, no fireworks, just steady. On our 2nd date, he smiled and said, "I really appreciate how responsive you are with texts. My ex would go days without replying, and it drove me crazy." I laughed. "Trust me," I said, "communication won't be a problem." And it wasn't. He made plans and kept them. Answered messages like a normal person. Didn't treat basic relationship effort like a burden. The contrast was startling. Looking back, I realized something sobering. The chaos hadn't come from me wanting too much. It came from him wanting everything: attention, control, admiration, without accountability. And when I stopped feeding that dynamic, it starved. The fallout didn't ruin me. It clarified me. It's been 3 months now. The restraining order is still active, permanent. From what my lawyer tells me, every attempted violation only strengthens the file he's built against himself. He still tests it sometimes. Fake social media accounts, messages filtered through people who don't yet know better. Each attempt gets documented. Each one goes nowhere. And for the first time in a long time, none of it feels personal. It feels predictable. That's the part that surprised me the most. I used to think closure came from conversations, from apologies, from someone finally admitting they were wrong. It doesn't. Closure came the moment I stopped explaining myself to someone committed to misunderstanding me. I didn't win. I didn't outplay him. I didn't execute some clever plan. All I did was listen, really listen, to what he told me about how he wanted the relationship to work. On his terms, at his convenience, with my needs framed as flaws. So I stepped out of the role, and everything he'd built on control collapsed under its own weight. Here's what I learned, really learned, from all of this. When someone tells you that your basic needs are too much, believe them. Not because they're right, but because they've just told you exactly how little space they're willing to make for you. You're not needy for wanting consistency. You're not suffocating for wanting communication. You're not desperate for expecting to matter. A healthy relationship doesn't make you feel like an inconvenience someone occasionally pencils in. It doesn't punish you for caring. It doesn't ask you to disappear so someone else can feel powerful. Some people don't want partners. They want an audience, a fan club, someone who stays on standby while they decide when and if you're worthy of attention. The funny thing is, the moment you stop auditioning, they panic. Because control only works when you're still playing along. I didn't get revenge. I got my life back, and that was enough. To anyone reading this who's stuck in a hot and cold dynamic, questioning your worth because someone keeps moving the goalposts, this is your sign. Don't argue, don't convince, don't shrink. Just listen and walk away. Sometimes the best response isn't saying more. It's finally saying nothing at all. If this story resonated with you, or if you've lived something similar, thank you for being here. Feel free to share your thoughts, your experiences, or pass this along to someone who might need it. And remember, peace isn't found in being chosen. It's found in choosing yourself.